So we said the last time that the Lord's Supper is an ordinance. It is a sacrament. It is a sacrament is something that was ordained or is ordained by God and has been given to the church to carry out until thy kingdom come. And so in the Christian evangelical church, because you have different expressions of Christianity. And sometimes, of course, we believe that we are the true ones, like many do, and there is no other. But in evangelical Christianity, which we are part of, or in the Protestant Christianity, which we are part of, we are Protestants because Martin Luther, when he protested against the established Roman Catholic Church, came out of Catholicism protesting against some of the heresies and the atrocities and the exploitation and manipulation and the darkness, whatever adjective words you want to find to describe what was happening in the church in those days. Luther protested against many of them. And of course, he's protested against, penance. He protested against the Pope as being infallible and the only authority and so on. And so from his movement, God has begun what I call the restoration of the church as it was in the time of the apostles. The church has come from very far. The church did slip into darkness many, many years ago. And when I look at the church today, it is beginning, that cycle is beginning to come around again. So, you have those who talk about 7 sacraments. Marriage is a sacrament in some traditions. Infant baptism. But the Protestant church acknowledges 2, which is baptism and the Lord's Supper. Those are the 2 sacraments that we believe that Christ has ordained for the church to carry out, to do as a ritual, as a ceremony, with deep significance as to his relationship with us and what he has done for us and the work that he is doing in our life. So baptism and the Lord's Supper are those 2. Of course, in other traditions, there are those who have feet washing in their church as part of that. So I'm saying this so that you will understand when people are doing what they're doing and when they ask you if you're doing that, where they're coming from. Now, the Lord's Supper, as we said, it is a sacrament. It was ordained by God. And anything that is ordained by God, we have to participate in. We have to obey. We have to do it. So it's that. And then it is, apart from being a sacrament, we said last week, it was a memorial. It is called by many different names, the communion and all that. But the Lord's Supper is a memorial taken from the text, where Christ said, as often as you do this in remembrance of me. And we talk a little bit about that. I trust some of you could remember what we spoke about. And then, of course, the Lord's Supper is a communion, because that's the name we usually give it around this time. We say we having communion this Sunday. And that has a different twist to it. The communion simply means participating and sharing, or what we call fellowshipping. And fellowship really is participation, sharing, caring, relationship among believers. So what Christ did, he had a communion with his disciples. They shared this particular meal, and the disciples participated in the entire meal. So it is symbolic of our unity as a church, as a commune, as a community of people living in oneness, living in unity. We have the same Lord. We have the same baptism. We share the same Spirit. And so we are one in Christ. And that's the concept. Of course, we'll elaborate on that at some time. But today we want to look at the Lord's Supper as a covenant, a symbol, and a confirmation of a covenant. Because that's what Jesus said it is. The text says, Christ said, this is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for many. Now we have to deal with that many. For the remission of sins. So, he says, this is the new covenant. So I'll just spend a little time on the word. I know Pastor Michael did decide to talk about that, at some point. I may have a little different spin. But the thing is, he said this is a new covenant. Now, of course, we who are not Jews, it might be a little difficult to understand where Christ is coming from. But of course, as we read the entire Bible, we will understand what he was saying. Now, of course, by definition, a covenant is an agreement between two people. There are many forms that a covenant takes. A covenant could be in the form of a treaty. It is an agreement between two nations. They sign a treaty of expectation and promises that they will make, and then they will do a symbolic gesture to seal or confirm that covenant. And a covenant really is not unique exclusively to the Bible. The time in which these men live, in the Bible times, in the culture of the day, this is how people relate to each other. This is how they communicate commitment. They cut, as they would call it, a covenant. And their covenant, as I said, it may take many forms. It may be in the form of a treaty, in the form of a friendship, agreement and promise, and of course, a covenant to God. Now, time will fail me to go through all of this, but I just want to cite a few places for you. You will see Joshua in 24, before he came to the end of days, or he called the nation, and he reinforced or renewed a covenant with them to serve God. That's what he did. He says, okay, we settle now. Remember all the ways, and he began to recount the history of the people. You say when God brought you out and all that stuff, and how we chose Abraham, and he came down, and he says, no, serve the Lord. Put away those gods from among you. And then Joshua said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And the people answered, yes, we will do that. And then he took 12 stones. And he says, these stones are witnesses. There's a sign. They form a symbolic or a sign that they represent. This is what you said. This is a witness to what you said. And they put these stones. You will find a covenant relationship between Laban and Jacob. They had some agreement, some arrangement. You will find it between Joshua and the Gibeonites, or Gibeonites, some will say. You have that. You have the covenant. You have it with Josiah himself and God. So it is not really something that is intrinsically unique only in terms of the Bible. But covenants are things that we do in contemporary life. Marriage is a covenant arrangement. When you stand before the altar, you make an unconditional covenant to love the person in sickness and in health. You promise. So a covenant has promises in it. There is a sign and seal of that covenant where you put a ring on the person's finger, signify, listen, this is a sign that this covenant I'm confirming this covenant. In other words, everything I said to you, I will promise to carry out. And therefore, you take the ring in the presence of all these people, and you put it on the person's finger. So everywhere you go and you see it, it reminds you that you are a married man or woman. It testifies to others that you have been spoken for and taken. It's a covenant between you and the person. Of course, your family is in that. God is in that. But it is agreement that you make. Now, some covenants are unconditional and some are conditional. In terms of God, God used the same concept of covenant to relate to people. Because God, of course, knew that the people in that day, that's how they relate. So God uses the same concept. And I want to say something to you. It's just like the word church. The word church is not really unique to Christianity. It was a Greek word that they use. Ecclesia, ek, all, call out. They call out once. Ek means out in Greek. The thing is that they use it to mean an assembly, an association, or groups of people. But the church now flip it, and they took the same word, and it means something deeper. So some of the concepts are not unique only in terms of a biblical concept. But God is like, the covenant that God initiates is like what a king will do to his subject. And you'll find this in the Bible as well. The rule and the ruler. There's a relationship between them. Let me make it more plain. The Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago and all the laws of this nation is a covenant relationship between the rule and the ruler. That's why you find that, I'm trying to explain to you the concept. Trust I'm doing a good job, giving you a little window. The thing is that's why when the PP party, they will say to you, this is what we promised the people. When we won our platform, this manifesto is our constitution that we promised to give to the people. And the people, they say yes to it by voting us. Because if they didn't want it, they wouldn't have voted us in. So we promised them to give them $3,000. Initially, every person will get $3,000. That's a promise. Well, there's something about human being and God. Then they renege on that. Because they said, you have to be qualified, to get that 3,000. It's kind of unfair, I will say, kind of unfair to some people. In other words, if you are getting NIS, you will never get that 3,000. If you get a pension from my father, worked with Texaco Company. Before he was getting a pension from the company. You get NIS. And one time he went to get the pension because he was of the age, but he could never get it. Why? Because he's getting pension from the company. He's getting NIS, and you put it together, and it's a lot of money. So they wouldn't give you that. They will give a person who never worked in their life, and they reach the age, they will get $3,000 because they have nothing, they're working nowhere, they ain't getting no other source of income, so they give that. So in other words, they promise certain things. God, the same principle applies. Let me go a little further. In the church, we have covenants. When you become a member of the Church of Christ, of course, you enter into Christ's covenant. But when you become a member of a local church or any organization, you enter into a covenant relationship and agreement. Any organization that you are in, They have rules and bylaws, and they have codes of conduct that you ought. That is the covenant. So when you come into that organization, you may have to say a pledge of allegiance. That's a covenant relationship you enter to. So don't make the big word about covenant and covenant something. You know, people try to make the Christian life so hard and things so difficult, but it's very simple. Something that we use every day in the life of people. God used the same principle to enact this covenant. But the thing with God, the difference with God is that God is infinite. And that God is a faithful God by nature. Man will renege on their covenant, on their promises. You know what treaty they sign, and in the Bible they talk about covenant breakers. You read it in the Bible. Covenant breakers, men will be covenant breakers. In other words, they will sign a treaty between, in the Middle East, they will be signing a treaty to ceasefire, and they will still be shooting people. You know much fishing agreement we signed between Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago? But it seemed like them could come and Trinidad water, but you can't go in their waters at all. That's covenant breakers. It is in the form of a treaty between nations and nations. It's a treaty. Between friends, sometimes it's a pledge. Between a worker or people in business is a contract. That's why sometimes people say marriage is a contract. They use that concept, but marriage is more than the contract aspect of the covenant. And in a covenant, you have consequences when you break them. That's why God, when he gave the covenant in Israel, he was said in Deuteronomy 28 and other places you will see, blessed if you do that, if you obey the word of God and you serve God and you humble him, all these blessings will follow you. But if you don't obey, curse be upon you. All this is part of the covenant. Blessing and cursing is in the covenant. In other words, they will make promises. God promised to do this if you do that. That's a conditional covenant. And all of God's covenant are conditional. All. There's an if factor. So you will never experience it if you don't, two words, trust and obey. You could never, you remember Nikita testified this morning, you know why? Trust and obey. I don't want to say one thing here, you know, churches have covenant too. When you come before, I'm just saying, and I'm just talking about it. I'll come and put more order to it, but I'm just talking about it. I'm just putting this. I'm just trying to lay a foundation, just sweep it a little bit, but I'll come and do the work that I want to do when almost all of us are here. The thing is that in church, when you become a member of the church, there's a clause that says, the only reason you should be absent is you're supposed to be faithful to every service. Every service of the church is not a matter of preference. I went to Dr. Woodruff of Elijah Center. He had a congress right in Tobago here at, the name of the place, Shades, I think, Shades. Somewhere, I think it's Shades. But there was a congress, annually has a conference. And, of course, the man, he sees himself as an apostle. And he started at Elijah Center in Trinidad in McCoy. And right in the credit union place, and that ministry has grown, it's become global all over the world. But he is very strong on this whole idea of the fact that we need to be committed to what we into. If you're not committed, you break covenant. A man says, honey, you know, I'll be faithful to you in sickness and in health. And when the woman gets sick, is that people like that, you know? When you get sick, all the pledge they make in the front of person and people, that gone through the window, you know. There are men I know who they will tote their wives or or whatever they do, and they will be there till the end because they are faithful to what they promise. And so in churches today, people are not faithful to the covenant. There's a workers' covenant that you read in the manual, but maybe it's like wedding. People forget what the pledge they're making. All they're studying is the food after, and maybe the honeymoon, and they forget everything the man was saying. They just regurgitate like a parrot when they was stand before he said, repeat after me, so I repeat. But it is not connecting with my brain. It is not connected with my will. It is not part of me. I'm just saying it because they're able to say it. And churches have covenant. And that's when you say, I will only miss service unless if I'm providentially hindered. That's what it is. So you expect it to be in church every time the church door is open. Except you're sick. Except maybe you have to go and attend to your mother or your father that's sick, that is doing the work of God. But not to stay home and watch TV. Not to say, me ain't coming today. No. It don't work so. That's why we don't receive the blessing. And that's why the church sometimes is suffering, because people are not faithful to their covenant. So God, by definition, I'm trying to establish a covenant is agreement between two people. That's what simply it is. You have promises that each person make, and also you have consequences if you don't fulfill those promises. And if you break the covenant, you cannot experience the blessing. And you will see that in the Ten Commandments, which is a perfect prototype or type of the first covenant that God made in terms with the nation of Israel. Not the first covenant that he ever made, but the first one he made with the nation of Israel. I gave them a constitution to live by. All the laws that God gave Israel was a constitution to live by. He was creating a new people, a new nation. They have to be different from the rest of the people in the world. So he gave them a new constitution. Now, I want to say to you that now the old covenant, now the Bible is filled with covenants, but the three major covenants that we talk about, or the four, of course, is the covenant with Noah. And I was alluding to that a little bit, which is an unconditional covenant. You can read that. I don't want to go into that right now. But I will do that the next time. God said, Noah, I'm making a covenant with you today and the rest of the world, of all animals from generation to generation. I will not destroy the world again with water. And I said, the sign of the covenant is simply this. You sign, I am giving you a sign that will give you comfort, that will remind you of my promise. I'm putting something out there that when you see it, you will know I meant what I said. And I will do what I said I'm going to do. He said, I'm giving you a rainbow in the sky. Now, that has nothing to do with whether you live right or wrong. God says you can live as sinful as you want. The whole world could be going on to hell in a moment. God will not destroy the world with water, because he said, I will not do it. Well, when God said something, that's the difference between God and man. When God says something, he performs it. That's one of the nature of a covenant, especially when God is concerned. He performs it. His nature, God can't lie. Every covenant is, first of all, initiated by God. All the covenant that you will see in the Bible is not man initiated it. God initiated them. God is the one who called Abraham. Abraham didn't say, God said, hey, come, call him. And he said, come. He initiated the contact. He initiated the covenant. God is the one who made the first contact and started to give man promise. And say, if you go here, if you do that, But in this covenant that I talk about, the word about Noah, whether you live wrong or right, it doesn't matter. God will not destroy the world by water anymore, but fire will burn this time. Now, of course, you have the Abrahamic covenant. That again is a covenant. Again, you see God call a man and give him a promise. God said, walk before me and be perfect. Abraham believed what God says. It was taking a long time. Abraham said, God, what happened? And you will realize God continues on many occasions to reaffirm what he says. And every time he does something, somebody tell him, go and watch in the sky, count the stars. Yes, count the grain of sands. But then you always find a sacrifice will be involved. And then God gave him a sign. He said, Abraham, you know what? Circumcise is the sign I'm going to give you for. That's your command. Circumcision. So cut the foreskin of every male that is going to be born. Circumcise yourself. And that was a sign. So every time he look at it, he remember, yeah, boy, God made a promise and he will fulfill it. And God, that covenant is still in train. Just like Noah's covenant has not been abolished, it's still there. Every time you see a rainbow in the sky, God is saying to you and me, remember what I said, and he's saying to himself, even though he doesn't need to do that, but just for your and my benefit, I am going to destroy the world with water again. Now then he made a covenant with Moses. Now this is where the Mosaic and the covenant of Israel. Now this is where it becomes the old covenant. Of course he made one with David, and David's covenant is that, of course, they will not depart from the tribe of Judah a ruler and a governor. And even all know that is taking place. That covenant has not been abolished. That is still in train. The Davidic covenant. Judah. But the one that he made with Moses on Mount Sinai, and in many other places that he was talking, God talking, God like a talk. People when I talk plenty, talking. And I read for you in 24, when God made the promise and he called the people and they said, we're going to do it, what God did, he confirmed it with a sacrifice, with blood. That's how God is to seal it. In other words, it is the stamp of approval. Any document that doesn't have a stamp, it has no weight.